Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 214. Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. If you're brand new here, my name is Tess. I am the founder of Wander Wealthy, host of this show, and your business coach if you happen to be a money coach or a financial coach or a wealth coach or even a money mindset coach. Any kind of coach that helps people with their money, you're in the right place. This week, we're going to be talking about something that I've recognized and heard a lot of other coaches are struggling with. They've been talking about this with me in my DMs, and I've been having conversations with clients, and I thought, I think this constitutes a podcast episode. We're going to be talking about how to clarify your messaging as a financial coach. And I am actually very excited to talk about this because it is something that I personally struggled to do myself early on in my coaching business, and not necessarily because of the reasons you might think. I actually came up in the world of self-employment and pseudo-entrepreneurship. I was a contract worker at the time in the content marketing world. I helped other businesses with their messaging, and I crafted this kind of brand persona and messaging for other people because I was writing their content. I was creating their blog posts and their social media posts with a content marketing agency, and I even did that for the agency as well. And so it was really interesting because I had no problem doing that for other people. It was really easy for me to see the value of these companies and kind of dig into the voice and the topics and be really clear and articulate about what this company, this business that I'd be writing for, what they did, how they helped people, who they served, and how they were different from others. And yet I wasn't that great at doing it myself earlier on. And I'm going to share with you why I see a lot of money coaches struggling around this. And I also want to share, some things that you can do to help yourself clarify your messaging so that you can make it very known who you are, what you stand for, who you help, and be consistent with that so that people know that you are the person to go to solve the specific problems that you solve. So if a lot of that was a little bit of overwhelm or gobbledygook, because that ultimately, what I just shared with you is clear messaging or how you ultimately get clear on messaging, don't worry, we're going to step through it in this episode. Now, before I dive in, I just want to share the sponsor for this week's episode, which is drumroll. I can't make a drumroll sound with my mouth, but just, insert drumroll here. The Wealthy Coach Blueprint. So the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is my 12-week business building program for money coaches. If you're brand new, you might not know about it, but if you've been around here for a while, you know all about the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. But essentially, we come together and I really help you refine or define, if you're brand new to the coaching world, your niche market, help you craft your life-changing coaching framework and program that you feel so confident in and that ultimately sells itself, and show you how you can confidently sell with permission and also with ease to your ideal clients and start delivering them an unforgettable experience working with you, and also, changing their lives when it comes to the money stuff, but also all the other stuff that coaches truly make an impact with in their clients' individual lives. So if that's something that you are interested in, if you have been feeling a little bit stuck in your progress of either kickstarting your money coaching career, or even if it's just a side hustle that you would like to do in your free time to be able to see how you can make an impact in this world through this medium, or if you have been building your financial coaching business and you're feeling a little bit stuck and not really pleased with your progress so far, or maybe you've worked with a coach or signed up for an online program in the past, or maybe even the most recent past, and you're a little bit frustrated with what you may not have gotten from there. Not to say that the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is better, but we make sure that you know what you need to be doing, you get the support that you want, and you make real progress towards the results, or even capture the results that you've been looking for all this time. So if you are looking for support like that, you want to know what steps you should be taking, you want to be held accountable, and you want to get the answers to all the questions that come up from building a business, then I encourage you to sign up for the Wealthy Coach Blueprint waitlist, because the next group round will be opening. We'll be kicking things off early to mid-June. And I say early to mid-June because I'm actually going to be giving early access to some of the materials in the earlier part of June, and then officially kicking off the coaching around mid-June. Those nitty-gritty details aren't as important, but of course, if you have questions, you can send me an email, tess@wanderwealthy.com, or reach out to me on Instagram. I'm at Tess_Wicks. Reach out to me if you're very curious about the dates and whatnot. But ultimately, we're going to open enrollment around mid-May. We will be having some special bonuses for anyone who gets enrolled earlier. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. And actually, if you want to be the first to know and be able to capture some of those bonuses, because they are going to be, have an expiry date, but also have a capacity of how many people can sign up for them, then jump on the wait list, because that is where everyone who is on the wait list, they are the first to know. And it really is first come, first serve. So you can jump on the wait list by going to wanderwealthy.com/apply, and we will be in touch shortly, because I know it is April if you're listening to this when it gets published, but I don't know, the months have been flying by, so stay tuned. Big things are going to be happening for you and for all of us this summer. All right, last time, wanderwealthy.com/apply to get on the wait list. Okay, let's dive into the nuts and bolts of how to clarify your messaging. So as I mentioned at the top of this episode, my foray into the entrepreneurial world was through content marketing. Before I started this podcast, which was definitely my first steps into building the business that I have today. At the time, it was called the Words and Money Podcast. But before I even started the podcast, I was working for a content marketing agency, and I got a crash course, and I worked for them for a couple of years, but I got a crash course in creating clear messaging, in copywriting, in inbound marketing, in the benefits, but also the trials and tribulations of building funnels and email marketing and social media marketing and all of that, right? This was a full in-house content marketing company, not in-house, I guess. I don't know, full service. And we did it all, and we did it well. And the funny thing is, I did it for the content marketing company too. So on top of knowing what I needed to do to fulfill my job, I also was able to continue gaining the knowledge about what would make our work as a content marketing agency even better, because I would be researching and writing blog posts about content marketing in general. And the reason I bring that up, on one hand, is because I'm going to be utilizing a resource that we used to always tap back in the day, later on in this episode. But on the other hand is to say that you would think I would, when I decided to create my own content-based social media marketed business, I would come out guns a-blazing, just ready to go. But what really happened is I was so general in my messaging and pretty muddled that for a long time, and I talk about this in many episodes, especially in my How I Became a Money Coach episode, it took me a long time to actually build my own coaching business, because I would go back and forth, and I changed, so many things so many times, from who I helped to how I wanted to help them. But ultimately, what I really struggled with in terms of clarifying my message, like what I see it at the root of it, and what I see at the root of a lot of coaches in this space, especially in the financial coaching space, are two main things. The one reason is that for me, I was not willing to go there. And what I mean by going there is getting specific with who I served and how I served them and what I helped them do. I wasn't willing to get specific. I wasn't willing to kind of take a stance and disagree with certain approaches. I wasn't willing to offend anyone, and not offend in a mean way, but offend in terms of just repel people, just like allow people to decide that I probably wasn't the best coach for them. I wasn't willing to do that. I was a people pleaser. I wanted everyone to be pleased with the content that I was putting out, which would ultimately then not be as effective at hyper attracting the right people that I wanted to serve. So I wasn't willing to take it there, especially when it came to, what I stood for, how I put myself out there on social media and in the podcast and in any of the content that I created. The other reason, and so I see that a lot with other coaches as well, especially the clients that I work with. And so in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, in our coaching, I challenge my clients to go there because I know that it's uncomfortable and I know it feels counterintuitive, but it's the most actual effective thing that you can do. Is if you're trying to please everyone, you're really not making an impact on anyone. So if you're willing to go there and decide to, become a magnet so you can hyper attract some people, the right people, and repel the others, that makes the difference. The other thing that a lot of, I myself, but also a lot of people, especially in the money coaching space, is not really fully understanding the value of money coaching. And this can be for a lot of different reasons. On one hand, the money coaching space, the coaching industry in general, and then as we specify down to money coaching, is so new. So there's not a lot of, awareness about how a money coach can actually help an individual. And also because it has to do with money, it adds an additional level of uncertainty or skepticism. And as coaches, it's our job to help overcome these objections. And what you can do is actually overcome a lot of these objections in your marketing and in your messaging. But we can get to that later. But that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people, aren't willing to necessarily go there, but also aren't clear on how to craft and clarify their message, and not only what they stand for, but also the value that they bring as this, this money coach in this space. I think another way that this holds people back, with the coaching industry being so young and money coaching not being very common, another way that this also kind of comes up for the individual who is now the coach who wants to market themselves is that you may not have invested in a money coach yourself. And so it's, again, hard to see or know about the value of what you truly can be providing to your clients. And this one is a toughie because you may not, need a money coach at this time. You may be in a space where instead of investing in a coach, you took the long, hard, winding road that now okay, hindsight's 2020. It could have been, a lot, not necessarily easier, but simpler. Had I had a coach, things would have been totally different. And there's some of that value that you can kind of see why you can help clients, but also it's sometimes hard to articulate and again, make your messaging super clear because you hadn't personally experienced it. And so on one hand, it's hard for you to articulate. On another hand, I know I'm talking about a lot of hands here, but on another hand, it also feels, and maybe you don't notice this, but there's a misalignment with your integrity when you start to say, hey, I've decided to become a money coach. I've never invested in a money coach in the past, but now I know that what I can do can help you, and you should definitely invest in a money coach, right? You're asking someone to invest without having done it yourself. Now, I'm not sitting here saying you should go invest in a money coach so that you can also be a money coach. Because again, you may be at a point now where you don't need a money coach. You took the long, winding road to get to where you are. But I do think that it can be helpful, not only in feeling more aligned and in integrity with what you're asking your clients to do, but also like it's just good to see the value that coaches can bring and to walk your talk in that way. And so even investing in a coach where you personally need it now can be very beneficial in helping you clarify your own messaging around the value that a coach can bring. And it's so much easier then to utilize examples of your own investments in the help that you are seeking, in the goals that you have that you want a coach to help you collapse the timeline it's going to take for you to reach those goals. You can utilize that in a lot of your messaging and your marketing and overlap it or draw parallels to money coaching. And that feels a lot more in alignment than just saying, hey, I didn't do this, but you should do this. Now, again, this doesn't mean you have to go invest in a coach, but there are so many opportunities between, life coaching, relationship coaching, career coaching, business coaching, health and wellness coaching. I mean, the world is your oyster, and that can be a really good opportunity for you to, again, be in integrity with seeing, hey, there's a gap here that I would like to fill, or there's a goal that I would like to reach, and there's likely a coach who can help me get there faster. And that's also going to help me not only be in alignment with what I'm asking my clients to do, but also really be able to live out and see that value myself. So just a thought. Just an idea there. But ultimately, what it really takes to be able to see the value of coaching so that you can clearly articulate in the messaging, in your messaging, it is going to come with time and with experience and with, just tracking your own clients or even tracking your own experience. Like you also, again, another reason why you don't necessarily need to go find a financial coach unless you know that there are gaps in your knowledge that you would like someone else to fill. But you also are your first and most important client. So you can also utilize your own coaching material, again, showcase how you walk your talk and utilize yourself as like a case study and share those results and showcase the value of, how you help your clients, aka how you're helping yourself. And that can be, the first. That can be the first showcasing of results and a testimonial. And then as you get more clients, making sure that you keep really good track of where they're starting from and how you help them get to where they want to go, and what not only the financial value of that is, because that's pretty, it's not like super easy to calculate, but you can get a pretty good estimate of the value of your working with your clients. And this is something that I help my clients do inside of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. We have a special spreadsheet for that because I love my spreadsheets. But also making notes of the non-monetary value of coaching as well, so you can fully explain that in your own messaging especially when you're talking about what it is that you offer and how great it is and what a great investment it can be for your clients. Okay, so I had to kind of start that as a precursor to this because I think ultimately those are what keep people from being able to take these next steps, which I'm going to start articulating now. And these next steps are kind of give you some exercises to do to be able to clarify your messaging as, your own financial coach. So if you've been around the Wander Wealthy space for quite some time, or even a little bit, then you know how much I talk about niching and the importance of having a niche. And ultimately, why it's so important for your messaging is because the more specific you're willing to go around, and let me clarify, when we talk about a niche, we're talking about who is it that you help and what problem do you help them with? So a niche isn't just the target audience, it's also the what, like where do you fit in? That's your special niche in a market, right? Who is it that you help and what do you help them with? Now you can get specific with one and stay a little bit general with another, get specific the opposite way, specific with the what and be general with the who. You can also get specific with both. That's going to be up to you. Obviously, I love to challenge my clients to be willing to go there and get specific with both because it really helps make everything else in your business a little bit more streamlined. But of course, that is not always the case. It doesn't necessarily always help to be super, super, super specific. But that's what we're talking about when we talk about niching. And there's a power in being specific with your niche when it comes to your messaging, because you get to start to begin to latch on to the unique nuances of, this individual who you primarily work with their lifestyle. You're able to tie in stories that, talk about what creates or what could stem from the specific problem that you help them with. So when you know now your niche, who it is that you serve and what it is that you solve, all of your content, all of your messaging should tie back to them, right? It should, if they're going to come onto your platform, it's kind of a what's in it for me. How does this serve me? Because at the end of the day, that's what people are looking for. What am I here for? Why am I on Tess's profile? It's because I am a money coach and she's going to teach me something about, what I could be doing in my money coaching business or what I might be missing, or, teach me something I never really thought of before that can really help me. That's why, think about any profile you go to. What do you get from them? And how is, in a lot of ways, that content created specifically for you? And that's what you want to start doing when it comes to creating content and marketing and having this clear, defined messaging, is knowing, first and foremost, who is it that I serve and what is it that I help them do? The next piece is your legacy. So these are two big things that I talk about inside of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. And your legacy is made up of a lot of processes that I take you through to ultimately get to your legacy. Niche being the most important, right? Without it, you don't have a strong foundation to launch a business from. Not having a clear niche is one of the reasons your messaging could be getting watered down and probably lost among the crowd of money coaches out there. And so the niche is always the number one place to start with any business problem I encounter. I'm always like, okay, first of all, what's your niche? And, tell me about it. What do you know about the people that you serve? And can you briefly and succinctly explain the problem that you solve? But the next thing we would do, right, when we go through the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, we define the niche, or we refine your niche, and then we answer the how, right? So we know the who, we know what it is that you do, but now we're answering the how. How do you get them there? How do you facilitate this transformation? How do you, show up in the world for your clients? Like, what does that look like for them? We're answering the how. And what this then usually informs is your legacy, right? If you can start to define how you facilitate a transformation for your clients, and that's going to follow a very unique framework to you as a coach, you're going to, talk about and teach and help with specific milestones that your clients need to be going through in order to get to the end goal, in order to get that full transformation, that's going to be unique to you. And that's what you're going to start becoming known for, right? You're going to start becoming known for not only who it is you serve and the problem that you solve, but also how you get them there. Because that's also what sets you apart from probably everyone else who might serve a very similar demographic and, help with this very similar problem. Now, keep in mind, if you get more specific on the demographic or more specific on the problem or both, you're able to set yourself apart even more so from, who you might consider competitors. But if you can't do it that way, then you got to do it in the how. You got to do it in your legacy. So your legacy is like, obviously, what do you want to be known for? How do you want your 30-second introduction when you're featured on the Today Show? How do you want them to introduce you? And how will that help you stand out from the crowd? So when you're identifying your legacy, a lot of it's going to stem from, of course, like what you stand for in the industry. I think that's important. I think it's good also if it's like a different stance from especially people who are closely competing with you, but it can also be bigger names in the industry. But it's also going to stem from how you help your clients achieve their results, that framework that you uniquely take your clients through. That is something that, again, we help you develop inside of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. And it's one of the biggest, most important pieces to get you to have a tangible, sellable program that, again, is set apart from everything else that's out there and that it makes it more easy to sell. Okay, so the who, the what, and the how ultimately is what's going to help influence your marketing, your messaging, and ultimately how you run your business. Okay, so knowing these, the niche and then the legacy are two things that will get you on a really strong foundation for crafting that messaging. But I do want to take it a couple layers deeper. So like I had mentioned, when I worked for the content marketing agency, we had this really our favorite resource to be able to link and share from. And it's a website called business2community.com. Now, it's nothing mind-blowing at first glance, but it has a ton of really great marketing resources. And we used to just sink our teeth into it. We used to read it. I used to learn a lot from it so that I could create content for our website. We would link back to it back when it was like really cool to just share other content, like other people's links to like blog posts on Facebook and stuff. That was back in the day. I mean, I think it's still cool, but it's just not so much a strategy anymore. But I used to find so much helpful content for the site. And so when I was doing some research around brand messaging and how I could make sure that I was really bringing you what you need to do to clarify your brand messaging, I found a checklist, and it was by this wonderful brand that we used to follow called business2community.com. So I pulled the checklist. It's from an article from 2014, but I actually find that a lot of it is still very applicable to what it is that you need to do today to continue to have clear brand messaging. And clear messaging or clear brand messaging, ultimately brand messaging, when we're talking about a brand, we're talking about you and your business, mostly your business, but because you're coaching, a lot of times you are your brand, or at least whatever you choose to show on social media as the coach is your brand. Like, you don't need other parts of your personal life to be your brand. I know some people think that that's what they should do to be like super authentic and real. But honestly, I think it's okay to have a healthy boundary between you as a human being and then you as a brand image for your program. Of course, you want to be honest, right? And that's a piece of actually this checklist. You want to be honest and realistic with where your business is at. But I don't think it's necessary to like include your entire personal life in your business whatsoever. But there's still a personal brand aspect, especially to being a coach, an online coach. So it's just a little side note. But I wanted to go through this checklist because I think it's the best way to kind of summarize what you can be doing for getting clear about your brand messaging, okay? So if you can answer these questions, and I want to kind of also share how this specifically would apply to financial coaches, then you're going to have so much ammunition to use for having clear messaging and almost a really clear guideline of how to be showing up in the online space. Be really clear about who you help, how you help them, what it is that you help them do, what you stand for, and your legacy ultimately. So let's dive into this checklist. I'm going to have it on the show notes of this week's episode as well. So you could head to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 214. But there's a side note, which is I don't necessarily agree with everything in this checklist. So just stay tuned because we're going to talk about it. Okay. So the first piece is messaging that appeals to the target audience. You need to have messaging that appeals to your target audience if you want to have clear brand messaging. And so your target audience is a piece of that niche that we were talking about. It's the who that you are serving. And so identifying who that is, and what is interesting is a niche when it comes to who and the what, sometimes they're one and the same, sometimes they're not, but a lot of times like your target audience is either a specific demographic that can be defined by lots of different things, right? Or there's still a target audience. They all connect because they have the problem that you solve. So it's still going to be a target audience of people. So I kind of take that back in terms of it's the who of the niche. It is the niche because the target audience either falls into the demo that you serve more specifically, like, a very, very common target audience is millennial women, which I would argue is still a little bit too general. But if you can be a little bit more clear about the problem, millennial women with over 6 figures of student loan debt, that's a little bit more targeted, right? So now we have a very targeted audience. You could also serve individuals in general, like college graduates. That's way more broad than millennial women. But with over 6 figures of student loan debt, that's a very specific problem. I would like to say very, very, very specific, but I have a feeling that there's far too many people with over 6 figures of student loan debt in this world, which is unfortunate. And so, it's still a little bit broad, but at least we have some definition there. Okay, but there's still going to be a specific audience that has that amount of student loan debt. So it's still all, that messaging needs to appeal to this audience. That's the ultimate check for you, is asking yourself, is the content that I'm creating appealing to this audience? When they come to my profile, are they coming and able to ask themselves, let's rephrase. They are coming to your profile going, what's in this for me? You want to make sure that you have something that's in it for them. You want to make sure that you're delivering that. Okay. So appeals to the audience. Next, communicates the value offered. Okay. So if you need your messaging to communicate the value that your service offers, and you can do this in a handful of different ways. I think, first of all, you need to be talking about what you offer, right? This is where we're kind of getting into that legacy, because we're probably talking about the framework of what you teach. You're going to be talking about your program. You're going to be talking about how your program is probably made up of pieces, right? So how certain pieces of your program help with a certain problem that your target audience is dealing with. Communicating how coaching and how your program specifically provides value to your ideal clients as it relates to certain problems, or maybe even just in a broader sense of the term. But being able to communicate that value is really important. Now, another thing to consider is obviously considering, I think a lot of people, when they invest in a money coach, especially, they're considering and concerned about the ROI, the return on investment, right? Or how can I really do this when spending money is my biggest issue, or when I don't have the cash flow to be able to afford it? And so you do want to take that objection, or all of those objections head on, and remember to communicate the value offered. That's what's going to help offset these objections. And how can you do that so that it appeals to your target audience? One last note on this, I think that a lot of messaging and marketing for your business is really well done when you can leverage the value that is communicated by your audience about your service. And so this typically comes in the form of testimonials and capturing the results that your clients are getting. And of course, it's going to happen after you have clients. So if you're newer and you've never had clients, that's a little bit more difficult to get your hands on. But as you have more experience and more clients and the results and testimonials from them, that's something that you can leverage for this. In order to kind of shortcut yourself to get some of this information, oftentimes it's going straight to the source, straight to your ideal clients and identifying what would the value be that they would get out of money coaching so that you can articulate that instead of thinking what the value is, but not really understanding how actually your ideal clients perceive it. So that's another little tip to do. And even if you don't have clients, you can do this just by going out and interviewing your ideal clients. If you do have clients, then I definitely encourage you to, be willing to go there, go ask these questions. Ask them for a testimonial if it's at that point, or if it's just, asking them what sort of value they're getting from working with you, even though you might still be in the process of working through some obstacles, some problems, or towards certain goals. All right. The next one is reflects the reality of your business. So this one is what I was somewhat referring to in terms of, you don't have to necessarily have your full personal life be your business and be your brand, but you still want to be real about where your business is at. And I think that is also important. Just again, with the integrity piece, what becomes really hard is when you have to start feeling like you have to fake it. And I know that there's the fake it till you make it on one sense where I talk about how you can definitely fake it till you make it, but in terms of being confident about what you don't know and faking that confidence in the beginning about what you may not know, and obviously being willing to go find the answers, not just like pretending like you know it even though you don't, but being confident in saying, I know I'm not there yet. I know I can be resourceful. I know I can help people. And I just need to have the problem presented for me so that I can go and problem solve it because I'm a really good problem solver. Now, that's kind of the fake it till you make it that I feel confident and comfortable with, especially when coaching other coaches. But another thing that comes up a lot, coaches will come to me and they'll say, well, what do I say if clients ask or potential clients ask me about results or guarantees, or what do I, how do I ensure that they're going to get the best results while I'm offering this beta round? And I always come back to just be honest with them. Let them know that this is a beta round, that this is the first round that you're going through, and be honest with the value that is involved in going through a beta round with a coach and, the fact that they're probably going to get a great price point. They're also going to get a highly personalized experience. And really, I just come back to honesty is the best policy. You don't have to pretend that your business is at a different point or that you are at a different point in your experience in order to make money. You can make money being honest and being, realistic about your business and being honest when it comes to the marketing and the messaging. And people are still willing to invest and take a bet on you and on themselves when they do this. And they are still also able to get great results. Right? And it feels so much better on your end too, because then you don't have to continue pretending the whole time. That doesn't feel good at all. So your messaging also becomes more consistent and clear and honest when it is rooted in reflecting the reality of your business. Okay, the next piece is messaging that is different from the competitor's message. So this is where we talk about, the importance of the niche, but also your legacy and identifying how you are different. And this should be taking place in terms of your messaging. And, if you are speaking to the same type of people, it may not be different in that regard, but potentially what it is that you're saying will be different. The other check on this checklist is messaging that's leveraged against the competitor's message. So this is where you can actually kind of bring up different approaches that you may not necessarily agree with, or that your ideal clients would have massive objections to, and you're not going to make them go through that like some other coaches might be. Now, this is entirely up to you. I am not a big fan of specifically calling people out and talking about how their approach isn't bad. I like to do it a little bit more in a broader sense. I've done that once, and I probably will never do it again, but I did it once. But it wasn't even for business coaches. It was for a very well-known money influencer, money author, money teacher. But I think that can be helpful, especially if they are, a competitor, but on a bigger scale, or talking about it a little bit more generally. A lot of money coaches are going to make you track every single thing you spend your money on, and I'm not going to make you do that, right? Having messaging that showcases how you're different from competitors, but also messaging that can stand out from your competitors, especially when it comes to your specific niche and how your competitors might typically make them do things that you're not going to make them do or have them do or, guide them through. All right. So we're making great progress through this checklist. And I think those two pieces about differentiating your message from your competitor's message, as well as leveraging your message against the competitor's message, can be really beneficial for you to really think about, how am I different? Something that I like to talk about, and it's a common, I guess, term, if you will, in the business space, is identifying your unique value proposition. And that's something kind of going back to the second check on the checklist, communicating the value that you offer, is identifying your unique value proposition kind of fits into that in terms of the value that any coach could really offer. And that goes all the way back to what we first started talking about, where I was sharing how I do believe that lots of coaches could potentially get their messaging muddled because they're not really very sure about the value that what they want to provide in money coaching can offer their clients. There's a lack of confidence there. There's a misunderstanding there. So identifying that, but then going as far as identifying your unique value proposition. And I think what makes it unique is basically what sets you apart from the competitors. And also, when I was talking about niching, I think again, that's what makes niching so powerful, is sometimes you can niche yourself into a place where you actually don't have any competitors, or you have very few competitors. So your unique value proposition is just the fact that you specifically work with these people, and not a lot of people or not a lot of other coaches are willing to go there. Again, here I go with the go there, willing to go there with their niche and saying, hey, I specialize in helping people like you, or people with the problem that you specifically have. All right, moving on to, we have 3 more kind of checks to go for you to really start working your way through getting clear on your messaging. This one I don't actually agree with. It says uses unique and snazzy words. And here's the thing. I don't agree with this, but I don't disagree. I know that there can be a lot of pressure to kind of say things in a way that is new and fresh and original. And I think that that is a little bit overplayed, mostly because it's almost impossible to think of something absolutely original that no one's ever thought of or said before. Instead of using unique and snazzy words, or like trying to reinvent the wheel with anything when it comes to your messaging, obviously find what is true to you and the way that you help your clients. But even more so, instead of using unique and snazzy words, what I want you to do is use the unique and specific words that your clients use. Use the words that they use to describe their own situation. Use the terminology or the way that they would describe something that maybe like what the technical term is, but instead of using the technical term in your messaging, use the way that they would describe it, right? So often we forget that we are unconsciously competent about the topic that we have become experts in. And so it can be hard to remember that, I need to pull this back. I need to say it how my ideal clients would say it, right? Explain the problem how they would explain the problem. They probably wouldn't say that they are, what example do I want to say? They probably wouldn't say that they are overutilizing their credit, right? They would probably say their credit cards are maxed out, or they have $100 left in their line of credit, or $100 left on their credit card for them to pay their bills, something, along those lines. They wouldn't utilize the terms that we might utilize to explain their situation in probably more brief terms or in a more technical way. They would use their own words. So instead of using unique and snazzy words, just focus on using the words and the language that your ideal clients are using to explain their problem and talk about, the things that they think might be the solution, but maybe they don't even know what the words are for those things. Okay? The next check is to communicate the benefits before the features. This is something that gets people really wrapped up, especially when it comes to starting to market and talk about your program. So many coaches will show up and say, hey, I am super excited. I have a new program and I'm ready to work with clients. You're going to be able to get 6 calls with me. I'm going to make a financial plan for you. You're going to get access to my budgeting spreadsheet and we're going to calculate your net worth. Woohoo! Okay. Those are the features of your coaching. They're really some of them aren't even features. They're just literally logistics. Like, we're going to get on 6 coaching calls. Cool. A feature might be, you're going to get this snazzy little spreadsheet that I'm going to walk you through. But none of that is the reason why someone is going to purchase your program, is going to make this investment in themselves, right? So instead of communicating the features, you want to focus on the benefits. And really, instead of, I don't really like the word benefit because I think that can be really hard for a coach to understand how to communicate that, because we're like, benefits, what? I don't understand how to articulate that. So instead of talking about the benefits, help your ideal client see the transformation that they can make. Okay. So instead of, let's say that my ideal clients are, I can go back to the example of millennial women with over 6 figures of student loan debt. Okay. So, hey, I just launched my program and I am so excited to be able to take you through a 3-month program that's going to help you get really clear on what you're facing with student loans. And instead of making it scary, we're going to do it together. We're going to do it hand in hand, and we're going to come up with a plan, because I can assure you that there is life on the other side of this student loan tunnel that you feel trapped in. And I'm going to help you see how not only will you have a plan that feels doable and feels like something you can see and achieve on your own, but I'm also going to show you how it's possible for you to live your life outside of making student loan payments, how you can afford to invest in experiences and have your daily takeout coffee while paying off your student loans and advancing to that light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so obviously you would kind of identify what is my current ideal client? What is their current situation? What are they facing? Like, what barrel are they looking down in terms of their future? And what are they afraid is going to happen? What do they want to happen? And then what can my program help facilitate for them? So you'll notice that I did briefly say, like, in 3 months' time, we're going to do this, but that's just to help them put a little bit of a timeline on how we can make this transformation happen. But then I go into, instead of talking about like the specific what it is we're going to do, help them understand how life is going to be for them, right? What is the transformation that's going to take place for them? And then if they circle back and they're in your DMs and they're like, okay, but how does this actually work? That's when you can go into a little bit of the features and the nitty gritty. But when it comes to your communication and your messaging that is public facing, that really needs to be about the transformation, because ultimately the reason why people buy is because you've created an emotion for them. And emotions don't come from talking about features. Emotions come from helping them see that what they want is possible, that what they're fearing can be mitigated, and that what they're struggling with right now, they can overcome. Help them see that you can help them do that in your program. And your messaging is going to get so clear, but also be super effective. Okay, the last check on, your brand messaging checklist that I'm taking you through is to keep your message consistent across the board. This is where I think a lot of us get tripped up, because in the early days, you aren't really sure what you stand for or who you're helping. And there is a little bit of a settling process to really settle into, okay, this is who I serve, this is what I help them do, and this is how we do it. But once you nail that, I want you to take on, and I believe I mentioned this last week, I've been kind of obsessed with this phrase, but it's because it's so important to kind of hold on to, especially when you're in this business space and you're questioning and doubting everything, right? Those doubts don't go away necessarily. They just like rear their ugly head randomly at some point, and you have to have the psychological strength to say, I'm doing okay. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. There's no reason to change now. And that is that, those who are most successful, those who find most success in what it is that they do, are quick to decide and slow to change. So be quick to decide on what you want to pursue and how you want to pursue it and what that messaging is going to be. And then be slow to change who it is you're talking to, what it is you're offering, how you're taking them through the process. That can change. That doesn't mean that you never get to change. This is not permanent, right? This is not going on, your public record. I mean, technically it's public, but you're allowed to change. I think what happens is so often, and I think that the school system has kind of bred us this way, that like, if we don't reach perfection initially, we need to switch gears. We need to change it up right away. And that's not always the case. I think so often if we just had the patience and the persistence to do something for a year, you would see it pay off. Right? Getting clear on who it is that you serve, what it is that you help them overcome, and how you help them do that. And then, keeping your messaging clear on all these other points as well. And then being consistent with that for a year at least, right? Even in less time, you can obviously see the results that you're looking for. But if you're willing to stick with something and have the mindset, I'm going to stick with this for a year, that can also help you stay as consistent as possible. What makes your messaging all muddled and confusing is when you just change it all the time. When you change, even when you say, oh, I have this one-on-one coaching, and oh, now I have this $100 course, and oh, now I have this other thing, right? Especially if you haven't established yourself and your legacy in place yet, then switching gears constantly, again, it confuses people. There is a little bit of a patience and a kind of a momentum and traction requirement to gain before adding even more on, because when people don't know what you're about, they want to easily look and learn what you're about. But if there's lots of different kind of things happening, different messages being told, it's really hard for them to get to know you and stay put, right? If they're confused, a confused buyer is a non-buyer. A confused fan is a non-fan. A confused follower is a non-follower. So help them see and understand why they're here. Obviously, if it appeals to them, they will stay, and keep that messaging consistent across the board, across your platforms, but even more so, because I'm not a big fan of having like way too many platforms going at once, because I like to keep things easy, but at least like across time, okay? Try not to switch it up every month or every even couple months. Like try to stick to something for a year, or at least pursue it with that mentality, and you will see that you will be able to be much more consistent. All right, so that's a wrap. That is it. This was a longer episode, but I hope it really helped you understand how to create clarity in your messaging, some different things that you can do to really streamline. And ultimately, when you start getting more clear, you start attracting more of your ideal clients. And when they land on your platform, whatever platform it is that you're using to create your content, they feel so much more seen, heard, and understood because you've done the work and you've stayed consistent and you're willing to go there and talk about what sets you apart, talk about what you have to offer, talk about what the transformation looks like, and talk about it how they would explain it. Talk about how their goals are possible in their words. Okay, so go out there and crush it. And don't forget, if you want to join us in the next round of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, get on the wait list, because you do not want to miss the early bird specials that only the wait list will know about. So head to wanderwealthy.com/apply so you can jump on the wait list. And I am so excited for this summer round to kick off. We're going to do big things. All right, that's a wrap. Until next week, I hope you wander wealthy.